Welcome to Business Notes. I'm your host, Diane Bogino, President of Performance Strategies and Diane Bogino Development. Our guest today is Dr. Michael Edwards. Dr. Edwards is the head of school at Cliff Valley School, which is a preschool through 8th grade in Atlanta, Georgia. Michael is in his 17th year at Cliff Valley, and prior to joining the school, he was a teacher for 10 years, working with students at all grade levels, elementary through college, in independent schools in the United States and overseas. The experiences he gained has given him a strong perspective on how students learn and develop over time. Michael has his doctorate in educational leadership and policy from Vanderbilt University, and he brings a unique vision to running a school. Dr. Edwards, welcome to Business Notes, and thank you for being on the show today.
Diane, great to see you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, it's been a while, but I am looking forward to this interview and learning more about the school. And tell us about your unique perspective about running a school.
Yeah, I've always been kind of motivated by this idea that, customer service is really important. And so kind of looking at a school running like a business, I think is really important. It's always been something that I've thought of. It's one of the things that attracted me to private education early on. But I do think that all schools have a responsibility to give great service to their customers, whether they're public schools or private schools. So thinking about great communication, anticipating what your customers really need, making sure that students get what they need, but that parents feel really great about the fact that their kids are in the school. So there's kind of a business approach to running a school that I think sets Cliff Valley apart. And I do kind of encourage other school leaders to think about that. I think too many times I hear stories of just not great communication or not great customer service. And parents are sending their most prized possessions to you every day. And you really need to be thinking about how you can meet their needs and even exceed their expectations.
Absolutely. I am happy to hear you say that, because every nonprofit is a business regardless, and it needs to be run like any other business. So kudos to you for that. So maybe you should do a webinar on that, okay? So what is something about your work at Cliff Valley that you're particularly proud of?
It's what's great for me about Cliff Valley. Cliff Valley was founded in 1966, and so every once in a while we'll have somebody drive by the school on Clairmont Road, and they'll pull into the parking lot and come up to the door, and they'll say, "Hey, is this that same Cliff Valley that my children went to back in the 70s?" And it's great in those moments to have those people. We bring them into the building, tour them around, and what I'm really proud of is that through many years of growth and change in our organization, that those people still see the same Cliff Valley that they fell in love with so many years ago, that we've been able to grow and expand, but that we still have the same core mission and values that people can see. And that's hard in an organization when you're growing and you're changing over time, to kind of maintain your identity, be able to consistently execute your mission. So I'm really proud of the fact that we've been able to do that.
Right. Now that school started off as how many classes, how many grades?
Yeah, it was just a cooperative preschool and kindergarten back in the 60s. And it was at the Unitarian Church, which is no longer there. It's part of the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta network now. But yeah, back in the 60s as just a preschool through kindergarten. And we didn't move on to our current campus until 2004.
Right. And so are you thinking of like going right through middle school, high school?
Yeah, that's a great question, because there has been a lot of growth in this school. When I joined Cliff Valley, we just went through 4th grade. We were adding 4th grade that year, so we added through 5th, and then we did a little expansion project on our campus, and we've now extended through 8th grade. So we're 3-year-olds through 8th grade on our current campus. And a logical question would be, so what's next? Are you planning on adding this or that? And the reality is, we're very happy with our structure right now and what we do. We really think that early childhood education through kind of the beginning of adolescent education is a critical time of development for children. There's so much formative growth that's happening there. And we think that we do that work very, very well. In fact, if you look at us compared to other schools, our ability to focus exclusively on early childhood and adolescent development, I think, sets us apart from other schools. And what we're finding is our families are very, very happy by the time they're in 7th and 8th grade to kind of look at some of the many alternatives for high school that are in the city. A lot of our families choose their public high schools, which we think is fantastic. And a good number look at other private schools as well. And I think when you look at Atlanta, there are so many types of schools that are out there. I'm really proud of the fact that we have kids that go to almost every type of school in the city. We're not just exclusively preparing kids for one type of high school experience. They're comprehensively prepared for a variety of things. So I think when we look ahead to the future, it's not about kind of changing our model, expanding our campus or things like that. It really is about making sure that we continue to execute our mission at a very high level.
Wow, that's really awesome, Michael. So let me ask you this: do you think that COVID-19 has made changes to education for the future?
Yeah,
And
that's a great question. I think we're really in the middle of that right now, trying to see what will stick from what has already changed. But here are a couple of things that I think I've noticed. Technology has made it so that people can do a lot of things when they're not right together. And I know there's been a lot of positive for that. I know there's been some frustration for parents who've had to maybe be at home with their kids at home too. But the reality is that technology has given access to education to different kids. And I think you're going to see that stay. I think, for example, little things like parent conferences, things that make it easier for parents to be connected to teachers and to the school environment as well. I think that stays. One thing that I'm interested in too is to see, I think when you have situations like a pandemic, a crisis situation really reveals what kind of organization you have and your ability to weather those storms. And I do think that in some instances, this pandemic has revealed that some schools and some systems don't really have the structure to continue to provide at a high level the way that some parents have expected. And so I'm curious to see kind of what parents will view kind of moving forward. Do they still trust certain schools and systems to deliver for their kids? Do they feel like they need to look at other options? But you're absolutely right. There's no doubt that, there was a little pebble tossed in the pond when the pandemic hit. And so we'll have to kind of see what that ripple effect looks like in the future.
right, that's an excellent point about how something like this can judge the structure of an organization. Interesting observation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what advice would you give to someone that's considering getting into the educational field today?
That's a great question. First of all, I always encourage those folks to really do that. We need great teachers. Teaching is such a rewarding profession. You really are. We talk about at Cliff Valley how we're really contributing to the lives of children and their families. It's not just the academics that you do. So you have a great opportunity to work with children and really shape and help people grow and develop over time. So I would encourage them to do that. But I always encourage teachers to really think about what they also want personally from that experience. So you want to contribute, but you have things as an individual that you need or you want to, and really encourage them to do their homework on the type of school or district that they might be looking at, where they might like to work, to make sure that that's compatible with what they believe about education, so that they're really able to teach and work with students the way that they would want to.
Right, right. Now, there's a lot of topics in the news today, but there also has been controversy over charter schools. What do you say to people who might object to even charter schools being around?
Yeah, I think that's always an interesting, when I hear that, I'm always interested by that. I'm at a private school, and a private school is an opportunity for choice for parents. Charter schools offer the same thing. It offers a choice for parents. And so my view is that parents should have choices about the type of education that they can provide for their children. And so I think it's controversial that some people would want to say, well, we shouldn't have choices. Parents shouldn't have choices. You just have this school and that's where you have to send your children. So I particularly don't view it as a controversy. I do understand though, I think some people view it as a threat. A charter school that comes in, oftentimes charter schools operate, like I described earlier, with a little more focus on customer service, maybe a higher execution of quality. That can make other schools feel, less than in some ways. And so I can see where people would feel like, hey, I'm threatened by the competition. But ultimately, parents should have options for their children, and charter schools offer that.
Right. I mean, some people even object to private schools for that matter. So, but you're right. America is all about choices, and American business is about choices. So, I agree with what you say. Everyone needs to have the choice about how to educate their children. So,
Well, I really
Michael,
believe, and I really,
go ahead.
oh, sorry, I really believe in this idea that there's a market out there. And that's one of the things I actually love about private education. You know, you hear about accountability a lot in schools, and most of the time in the public sector, they kind of define accountability around student test scores. And the thing about a private school that's different, in fact, you mentioned your nonprofits earlier, the ultimate accountability we have is that we have to find paying customers who want our product, or we will go out of business. We don't get money that's just sent over here just because we happen to be at an address on Clairmont Road.
So, Michael, you've been at the school 17 years. I know you're not going anywhere, but what would be the next step in your career?
Yeah, that's a great question because I really am very happy here and love the career that I'm building here at Cliff Valley. You know, I think one of the things that I'm excited about, we've really started to increase our work on parent education and professional development here. And so what I really feel like is next here for me and at Cliff Valley is to continue to grow those programs. You know, parents want to be part of the educational process for their children. They are their children's first and most important teachers. And I think one of the things that we focus on here outside of academics is kind of the social and emotional development of children, the development of their executive function skills over time. And these are things that parents don't necessarily know about. So offering more parent education, really even outside of our own parent community, to help parents understand how they can contribute positively to their children's growth and development over time. And then using our institute also to help teachers improve their skills. Again, outside of just the academic areas, there are so many things that happen during the course of a school day that teachers are working with kids on, kind of helping influence how kids are thinking about managing conflict, managing challenges or disappointment. You know, that kind of work, just making it a much deeper level of work with students, is something I'm really excited about for the future.
Right. There's so many things that kids need to learn: managing money, managing disappointment, all kinds of things. So your points are well taken for
Absolutely.
sure. Yeah. Michael, thank you so much for being on the show today. You really have brought some unique perspectives, and I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for watching Business Notes. We've been speaking with Dr. Michael Edwards, head of school at Cliff Valley School. I'm your host, Diane Bogino, bringing you business ideas you can bank on.